Hello everyone, my name is Daria, welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be doing the Mid-Year Book Freakout tag. I think I've only done this tag once before on my channel, which is strange considering it will be my 4-year booktube anniversary in like August, I think? Yeah, in the next month. It's really strange for me to think about being on booktube for 4 years now because I still feel like I'm just starting out. Anyway, let's go ahead and just get into the mid-year tag, which of course I am completing a little bit past the mid-year point because I can't do anything on time. The first prompt is, of course, the best book that you've read so far this year, and my answer to this question is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I honestly was debating whether or not to put this book and Take a Hint, Dani Brown in the biggest surprise section because I did not enjoy the first book in the Brown Sisters series, and that has been a point of great disappointment and shame for myself because everybody loves Chloe Brown so much, and I didn't. But so many people were continuously praising this series, saying that it only got better with every single book, and so I thought I would give the next two a try, and I'm so happy that I did. I really don't know where I would be if I hadn't read the rest of this series. Much less happier, I think. So Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This is the final book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, which is a romance trilogy focused, of course, on the 3 Brown sisters. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, this book in particular focuses on Eve, who is the youngest of the trio, and she suffers a lot from youngest sister syndrome, which I can really attest to because I also suffer from it as the youngest sibling. Eve's parents let her get away with a lot. They have definitely babied her, and she struggles a lot with like finding her footing. She doesn't really have a discernible life path or passion even, and every time Eve tries something, she always spectacularly fails, so she's just kind of given up. But then Eve's parents sort of drop a bomb on her and say that they are no longer going to support her, that she has to find a job, that she has to figure her life out. So Eve sets out, she wants to prove her parents wrong, and she wants to do this by finding herself a real, mature adult job. So she goes to a local bed and breakfast where they are trying to hire a new chef. And she runs into the owner and manager of that B&B, Jacob Wayne, who is her exact opposite. He's very thorough, very detailed and organized. He doesn't like chaos, which is everything that Eve is. And yes, you guessed it, Eve and Jacob strike up a romance. It is the sweetest thing I've ever read, the funniest thing I've ever read, and also the hottest thing I've ever read. I feel like Talia Hibbert stepped it up with every single one of the books in this trilogy in the steamy scene department. So this book being the final one, yeah, it was good. It outshined the others. If you've read this book, I don't even have to say anything. Like, wow. But it's not just the romance that makes this my favorite book of the year so far. It really is how much I connected with Eve and how much I understood her struggles. Also, I absolutely love that we had a hero on the autism spectrum, and I just love Jacob in general. I think that he is definitely like one of my favorite romance heroes. And Jacob and Eve are definitely the grumpy one, sunshine one dynamic, which I'm always a sucker for. In general, this book was just so surprising, so heartwarming, so hot. I cannot overstate how hot this book was. And all those factors combined just make it definitely the best book that I've read so far this year. The next prompt is the best sequel you read so far this year, and I'm going to have to give this one to Chain of Iron. I originally had Rule of Wolves in this category, but the more I thought about it, I think that Chain of Iron was just objectively the better written story. So Chain of Iron it is, and I don't think anyone is going to fight me on this. This book was so well written. It was everything that I wanted and more. After reading this book, I can comfortably say that the Last Hours trilogy is my favorite thing that Cassie Clare has ever written. I don't think there's a cast of characters that I've ever loved so intensely before, and that's surprising to me because with every single book series that she comes out with, I think that, this is the cast of characters that I love. I don't think I'll ever love another Cassie Clare cast more than this one. And then she just outdoes herself. I don't understand. I'm especially attached to our main heroine, Cordelia, so intensely, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that she is Persian. I just have that connection with her. And this book was really just one huge emotional gut punch, especially that ending. I know that a lot of people compared it to the Infernal Devices dynamic of Will, Jem, and Tessa. And hold on, because I'm gonna say something controversial, okay? I personally think that the ending of Chain of Iron is far more emotional and hurtful than anything that happened in Infernal Devices. That's what I believe, that's what I think, that's what I know. And the difference is that I actually really gave a shit about the 3 people involved in what happened at the end of Chain of Iron. It felt devastating because I cared about all of them, and I couldn't really blame any single one of them. Like, it was just pain and heartbreak all around for everyone. Like, there's nothing good is gonna come out of that situation. Like, someone's gonna get hurt, and I can't choose who it should be because I love all of them. I don't want to see any of them get hurt. Whereas in the Infernal Devices, there's definitely one character that I didn't really care as much for. So for me, the Infernal Devices just is not like the devastating heartbreak that it is for everybody else because, you know, I care more about one half of the equation than the other. So the next prompt is a new release that you haven't read yet but really want to. And the only answer for me that this could be is People We Meet on Vacation. I have read Beach Read, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I don't think it stuck with me the way that it stuck with other people. Like, in the moment, I really liked it, but I haven't really thought about it since. But as much as there was, like, anticipation and lots of praise and hype surrounding Beach Read, it's really nothing compared to like what I've seen when it comes to People We Meet on Vacation. Like, everyone loves this book. I don't even think I've seen a single person like neutral about the book. Like, everybody just loves it. I am particularly intrigued about when it comes to this book is that it is focused on the best friends to lovers trope, which is a trope I historically have not liked, that I historically have even despised, you could say. For the longest time, I have lived in the camp of best friends to lovers deserve no rights, because so often it goes something like this. It's always the girl being in love with the guy, and he never notices her, never pays any attention to her, until someone else comes around, and then he's suddenly like, oh wait, I actually do love you. And I hate that. I really do. I hate it. I honestly hate any like hetero ship where the girl falls first. Like, abolish it. Abolish it. Men should be falling first. Men should be pining. I don't want to see anything else. But everyone is saying that the best friends to lovers in this book will completely change your mind about the trope. So I'm excited for that. Next, we have your most anticipated release for the next half of the year, and the only possible answer I could give is the Aristotle and Dante sequel. I've been waiting for this book. So many of us have been waiting for this book for so long. Benjamin Eliasson has been talking about this book, teasing this book, and now it's finally here. It's coming to us. And it is coming to us in my birth month, in October, which I know is not really a gift to me, but I'm gonna pretend that it is. I cannot wait to see Ari and Dante being domestic, discovering themselves, discovering who they are to each other. It's gonna be so good, and the cover is so gorgeous. Oh my god. I can't. Every time I think about this book, I can't stop smiling. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. My most disappointing read of 2021 so far has definitely got to be An Offer from a Gentleman, and I would say all the Bridgerton books that I read this year. At the start of this year in January, I was on the Bridgerton hype train, like pretty much the rest of the world. I was hungry for more content, so I went to the books, skipped the first one because, you know, I already knew the story and I heard that the show was just so much better than the book already. So I went straight to the Viscount Who Loved Me, which is Antony's story. And the entire, like, book fandom absolutely loves Antony and Kate, who is his love interest. And they were like an enemies to lovers type situation, so of course I was hyped. And while I enjoyed it, I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And then I went on to read An Offer from a Gentleman, which is Benedict's story. And in the show, he's definitely, like, objectively one of the best Bridgerton siblings. So I was excited. And then I hated his book. Oh, Lord, I hated his book. He is such a prick. In his book, he has a romance with a girl who is of a much lower class than him. She's a bastard. She works as a maid in his home. And the way that he treated this girl, you guys, his classist ass. I couldn't stand him. And then I read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin and Penelope's book, and it was definitely my favorite because they had a lot of history, a lot of, like, angst between them. But even then, like, it wasn't great. And based on what I've heard from readers who, like, read the first book and then watched the show, a lot of them said that the show was just so much better and improved upon a lot of things that they didn't like in the books. So I'm hoping that the next seasons of Bridgerton will do that with these 3 books that I read. So I honestly think that Bridgerton might be one of those situations where the adaptation is better than the original source material. My biggest surprise so far of 2021 is a book that I only recently read, the suspense thriller The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. This book was such a surprise because I have read one of the author's other books, which I think was called like The Mother-in-Law or something, and I think I gave it like 2 or 3 stars. Like, it was fine. It wasn't that thrilling. I guessed the ending to the mystery like way ahead of time, and I wasn't really invested in the story at all. I'm pretty sure at one point I wanted to just like leave it in the middle, but the audiobook narrator had a really great Australian accent, so I wanted to keep listening. But this book, I could not put it down. This book is, of course, about two sisters, two twins, actually, Rose and Fern, and they are very involved in each other's lives to the point that one could see it as unhealthy. We flip back and forth between Rose's diary that she's writing in, where she talks a lot about Fern and Rose's past growing up with their mother, who was really not a great mother and was, in fact, pretty mentally abusive. And then we will flip to Fern, who is neurodivergent. We're not really sure what her diagnosis is actually, but we know that she is neurodivergent. And we follow her throughout her day-to-day life, and we also follow her when she decides that she's going to try to have a baby for her sister, unannounced to anybody. And Fern's quest to get pregnant without letting her sister know, or the father of the baby even know, is where a lot of the mystery and trouble begins. Anything else I could possibly tell you guys would be a spoiler, even though there is so much I want to tell you because I feel like that synopsis just really doesn't do this book justice. This book has the trope of the unreliable narrator, which I absolutely adore, and there were so many times throughout this book that I was questioning what to believe, who to believe, whether any of these people could even be trusted. And it really dug into what it meant to be a sister, the good, and of course, the really, really bad. The next prompt is a new favorite author who is either a debut author or is just new to you. So my answer to this prompt, I wouldn't say that they're a new favorite author, but they're someone I'm definitely going to keep my eye on. And that person is Rachel Lynn Solomon. So this year, I read The X Talk, like a lot of other people, and I loved it. I know that Solomon has come out with other books, and I think they've all been in the YA contemporary genre. But The X Talk was her first adult novel, and it was an adult romance novel. And she is really good at writing adult romance, I must say. This book follows two people who are working at the same radio station. They're butting heads a lot. They have a lot of conflicting ideas about radio and what it should be. On top of that, their particular station is going under, and so they come up with this idea of what's called the X Talk, where two exes will sit down and give advice on dating, relationships, etc. And so the two of them decide to pretend that they are exes and do this radio show, and it absolutely blows up. It's a very unique take on what I would say is the fake dating trope, except they're fake exes. I feel like this book and this author almost came out of nowhere for me, but I can say that she's definitely sort of made her mark, especially as a debut author in the adult romance space, and I'm really excited to see what she writes next. So the next prompt is your newest fictional crush, and honestly, you guys, I drew a complete blank here. I couldn't really think of anyone who was a huge standout to me this year. If I'm gonna call someone a fictional crush, there's a different standard. I really have to love them and be obsessed with them on a whole different level. The only person or people I could even try to think of were these two people in a show that I'm recently watching. And this is the Mid-Year Book Freakout tag, so it's not really about books, but I'm gonna mention it anyway. I'm gonna talk about them because I actually need to exercise this demon. I have been bursting at the seams wanting to talk about this show and these characters with somebody, with anybody. So I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna tell you guys about them. The two characters I would consider my new fictional crushes are Ada and Bora from the Turkish show Bat Oyunu. I totally butchered that. Turkish and Farsi definitely have some similarities in terms of words, but the pronunciation is definitely a lot different. So, sorry. So this romantic comedy show follows Ada, who there's this old wife's tale, this myth in her family that if you don't marry your first love, you're gonna end up unhappy for the rest of your life. And she fell in love with this one guy in college, and he was actually being deported pretty soon. So she decided to marry him in order to keep him in the country. And now, 3 years after the fact, when this guy is finally getting his citizenship, Ada is convinced that he is finally going to propose and that they will be a real, authentic married couple. But of course, that's not how it goes. This dude is an asshole, and he kisses some other woman, and Ada is right there and sees the whole thing. And of course, according to the myth of Ada's family, she needs to marry her first love. So she's going to do anything to get this guy back, including getting a job at where he works, so she can be around him all the time and sabotage his relationship with this other girl, who also works there. And she gets a job as the assistant to the CEO of the company, Bora, who seems like a very, typical rom-com lead. He's very aloof, cold, doesn't believe in love, but in reality he's actually a really sweet guy. But of course, as the title of the show represents, by the way, the title of the show translates to something like Game of Fate, Twist of Fate, something like that, maybe Bora is actually the guy for her. Who would have thunk it? literally anybody who has ever seen a rom-com would have thunk in. The show is full of so many tropes and cliches, but it is so, so good. It is so funny. Ada is literally just absolutely hilarious. And Bora is, you know, he looks like that. So these two are so sweet together, so soft. If you follow me on Twitter, you have seen all of my likes. You know how much I am obsessed with this show. So the next prompt is your newest favorite character. And I have 2 for the price of 1 for this answer. And that is both the Carstairs siblings, Cordelia and Alistair. I will do anything to protect these two. I definitely have a very deep attachment to them because they are Persian characters. And it's so nice to be able to just open a fantasy book and there are just Persian characters existing, speaking Farsi, reading Persian poetry, falling in love, getting to exist in this magical world and fight in battles. I want nothing but good things for these two. It's what they deserve. Also, this is a bit of a tangent, but there is nothing that makes me happier than seeing fan art where these two actually look Persian, they actually look Middle Eastern. The ones where Cordelia has a distinctly Persian and Middle Eastern nose, the full eyebrows, you can just tell when an artist, a fan artist, actually is using Middle Eastern references and models versus when they're not. So to every fan artist that has drawn a distinctly Persian Cordelia and or Alistair, mwah, I love you. The next prompt is a book that made you cry. The only answer I could even think of was Rule of Wolves. If you've read the book, you know why. You know why. And it was absolutely uncalled for. I'm still mad about it. I'm not even sad, I'm angry. Angry. I honestly can't even bring myself to talk about it. I won't because it's a huge spoiler, but also I don't think I could physically talk about it. The next prompt is a book that made you happy, and the only answer I think that I could possibly give is the Witch comics. I decided to do a little bit of a throwback to my childhood, which was spent religiously reading these graphic novels with my sister. We were absolutely obsessed with these girls and their magical powers and their cute outfits and their boy drama, and even rereading some of the volumes, which I did in a dedicated vlog earlier this year, I still really enjoyed this story. It also has really interesting storylines about friendship and belonging and what it means to sort of have this really great responsibility of trying to save the world at such a young age. And of course, the intense nostalgia I get from reading this series will always be a point of happiness for me. Next up, I get the chance to show off the most beautiful books I have bought myself this year, and that has to be these 2 editions of Pride and Prejudice. This past year, I've really stopped buying physical books unless 1, I've already read the book and know that I love it and will want to reread it, or 2, because it's part of a sequel of a series I already really love, so Rule of Wolves. And of course, I'm still buying Pride and Prejudice editions wherever and whenever I can. And these 2 are my particular favorites. So first up, we have the Alma Classics edition of P&P. I love how minimalistic this cover is. The cream, teal, and orange colors, the typography, just everything about it. I love it. And next, we have the Penguin Drop Caps edition. So this is actually part of a series that Penguin did where they took classic authors and basically alphabetically by last name created this special edition of one of their books. First in the alphabet, we have A for Austen. They did this really gorgeous red edition of P&P. And then, for example, D is for Dickens, E is for George Eliot. I honestly wish I could get all of Austen's books in this kind of format, but they only did the 1. The last prompt is books you need to read by the end of the year, and there are so many. But let me just shout out a couple ones that I really, really want to get to. Legendborn, A Dowry of Blood, Night Bitch, and The Heart Principle. Some of these books came out last year, some this year, others have yet to come out, but every single one of them I'm just desperately dying to read. Some of them are sequels that I'm highly anticipating, some of them are books that have been praised to the high heavens and I feel like I'm definitely missing out by not reading them, and others are books that I am going to buddy read with some really great and close friends, and I'm looking forward to that. So of course, so many books, so little time, but these are definitely a few that I really need to get to by the end of this year. So that is it for me today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your answers to these prompts. Let me know what books that you loved, hated, were disappointed by this year so far. As always, if you want to find me or follow me anywhere else on social media, all the links will be down below. I love you all so very dearly, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!